Hare Krishna, thank you for joining us tonight for the Sunday feast. You can now all turn and face this seat here, and we'll have our talk tonight. Tonight's talk is by Dravida Dasa Brahmachari. In case anyone here is not familiar with Dravida Prabhu, I'll add that Dravida Prabhu is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he's been practicing Krishna consciousness for 50 years now, and about over 30 of those years have been in this temple here, serving Krishna in this temple. Also, his primary service over those decades has been in editing different books about Krishna consciousness, the different books of Srila Prabhupada about Krishna consciousness. And tonight he will, I have your mic. Tonight he will give a talk about the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Hare Krishna. Do you want the teachings of Lord Chaitanya? I have one. Thank you. Hare Krishna, everybody. Hare Krishna. Nice to see you tonight. Isn't it so nice that it's nice and cool here compared to other places in the United States? So we're getting a big influx of people coming to the park also. So tonight, I'd like to begin with Srila Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra, which we always begin with, but it's also part of my little explanation tonight. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter at His lotus feet. Our respectful obeisances are unto you, O spiritual master, servant of Saraswati Goswami. You are kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Dev and delivering the Western countries which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. So, Srila Prabhupada wrote that prayer when he came. No one else was going to know how to write anything in Sanskrit. So he felt that this encapsulated his mission and also his support. Because here he offers his obeisances, as we all should, to our Gurudev. His Gurudev is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. That's the Saraswati Goswami. And what is his prime activity and mission? To spread the message of Lord Chaitanya. Gauravani Pracharine. Gauravani means the words of Lord Chaitanya, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And Pracharine is kind of English cognate, to preach or to propagate widely. And where? In the Western countries. When Srila Prabhupada first came to America in 1965 on a freighter with no money, and a few contacts, and just empowered by the faith in his Gurudev and in Lord Chaitanya's order, and his Gurudev's order. He didn't know if he would actually leave the Western world, the United States. He didn't know how things would develop. And indeed, for the first year, it was pretty touch and go. He didn't make too much progress. But he continued, wherever he had the opportunity, he was spreading the message of Lord Chaitanya. And eventually, those who are familiar with the history, in 1966, he got some traction, so to speak. He had some followers in lower east side of New York and started 26 2nd Avenue, and then it spread to the West Coast and then around the world. So really, he's not just saving the Western countries, but it started with that, and I wanted to start with that. But I wanted to focus on this phrase, Gaura Vani Pacharane. Gaura is a word that means Lord Chaitanya, the golden. Gaura means golden avatar. And Vani means words, and Pacharane means preaching or propagating. So, what are those words? Well, we have a book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. This is the second main book that Srila Prabhupada published in America. His first was the Bhagavad Gita, but it was an abridged edition, Bhagavad Gita as it is. The publisher, Macmillan, we didn't have our own publisher then. There was no BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. They had to find a publisher, and actually how that came about is a whole miracle, is one of the many miracles in Prabhupada's preaching, how he was able to get one of the main publishers in the world, Macmillan, to publish his Bhagavad Gita, but they wouldn't publish the unabridged, the thick one that we have, the full with all of the Sanskrit and everything. They insisted maximum 400 pages. So Prabhupada agreed, and the title was not Bhagavad Gita as it is. It was the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And that was in 1968, and later in that same year, he published this book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Now what this book is a summary of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya that he gives them in the book called the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which was another book probably published later. It's 9 volumes, and it contains Lord Chaitanya's teachings and also his pastimes, and especially the details of his pastimes in the later years called the Antya Lila. But Prabhupada took those teachings in Chaitanya Charitamrita and condensed them into this book, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And just a little personal history. I was a child of the 60s, and my main focus was anti-war, anti-Vietnam War, which is just horrific, and I was involved in that aspect of the youth movement, not so much the hippie movement, the drugs and everything, LSD. And but I got very sick. I was living in New York, believe it or not, a block away from the Tompkins Square Park in 1968. But I was a total atheist. I hadn't been raised with any religion. But I got very ill with hepatitis, and I was laid up for a whole month. And it was just it happened to be the month when supposedly they walked on the moon the first time. So I was there in July '69. I was in a hospital bed watching that, and that enlivened me. So when I got out, I felt I wanted to have some kind of regimen to get my health back. And by that time, I'd been exposed to some Eastern music, Ravi Shankar, India, and George Harrison, and there was some yoga studios starting up. So I said, let me try this yoga. So there's no yoga where I was in Long Island, but I found in the Yellow Pages. Does anyone remember the Yellow Pages? Before the cell phones and everything. I looked in the Yellow Pages, and there was a studio on the Upper East Side in Manhattan. And who was running the studio? He who would later be known as Amala Bhakta Maharaj. Anyone who's heard his recordings, he's still going strong in L.A. and in his 90s now. And so he wasn't a Vaishnava at that time either. He was known as Shiva Prem Swami, and he was running this ashram, and I started with him. Anyway, it's a long story. But I was very philosophical. I was very much into existentialist philosophy and all these different things. So when I first visited the temple and I got a book, it was the Krishna book. But at that point, it was too much Leela for me. I was more into where's the philosophy. Eventually, I got the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is mostly philosophy, and that book just enthralled me and got me coming more and more to the temple. And I joined in March of '73, which is over 50 years now. So I'd like to just go through and what are those essential teachings of Lord Chaitanya that Srila Prabhupada was preaching, that inspired him, and that really is the essence of this whole movement. And the essential teachings of Lord Chaitanya are encapsulated in a work called the Siksastakam. Siksastakam means 8 verses of instruction. Now, these have been collected, and they're in the very end of the Chaitanya Charitamrita book. They're nicely described. But they're central to understanding the philosophy of this movement and also the benefits, all in that first verse, the first verse of the Siksastakam, which I'm going to focus on. And that encompasses so much of the philosophy and the goal of the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya that he preached. So here's how the verse goes. Many of you know this. Cheto darpana marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam shreya kaidavachandrika batadanam vinjavadhu jivanam anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamita swadanam sarvatma snapadam padam vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. And this is how Srila Prabhupada translated it in his introduction to this book. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan. Now, Sankirtan means singing together with others. That's what we just did. Sankirtan of the Hare Krishna mantra. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together, and thus extinguishes the fire of conditioned life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to taste the full nectar for which we are always anxious. So, this very inspiring, just reading that. And some time ago, I put this whole Siksastakam into English poetry. So if you allow me, I'll just give you the translation for that poem for that first verse. And I have to, to be honest, I didn't. There were a few things I added. In other words, it's based on it. It has all the meanings that are there, but there's a few enhancements. All glory to the chanting of Sri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames. By polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart, that chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. Of transcendental knowledge, which will take us to life's goal, the chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy names and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. So, now, I'm just going to go through line by line because it's progressive, actually, this whole verse. It's wonderful. So he begins with this, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Now, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, it's all metaphors. There's like 7 metaphors. The first one is he compares the mind to a mirror because you see yourself and you see the world through the agency of the mind. So when the mind is a mirror, if a mirror is covered with dust, you can't see yourself very clearly, right? So this chanting, the first installment, is this polishing of the mirror of the mind so that you can see yourself clearly. You understand, I'm pure spirit. I'm not this physical body. And by doing that, Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. Bhava Mahadavagni. Every word is so important. Bhava is a word that means ever changing. And it has come to mean the change of birth, old age, disease, and death. So this is we live in a bhava. You can compare it to an ocean, a dangerous ocean. You're in the middle of the ocean trying to stay alive. Bhava Sagara. But here he compares it to a blazing fire. Mahadavagni means a blazing forest fire. Nirvapanam, extinguishes. So the first benefit of chanting sincerely and hearing is to extinguish that blazing fire. In other words, liberation is the first benefit of Krishna consciousness. But there's more, but that's the first thing. Now how is that? Now, let's just analyze that a minute. And that is that it's understood from the Bhagavad Gita, if and when you read the Bhagavad Gita, that we're not these physical bodies, or even this mind, but we're the pure spirit, a pure soul, conscious living being within. Whenever you see any organism means a living being, right? That is the essential nature. There's a physical body, there's mental, and some cat running down the street, or a dog or something. That he has a mind and he has a body, but he doesn't have much intelligence. It's covered more than in human beings, so they can't understand the philosophy. They can benefit by eating prasadam. I remember we had a cat out here long before any of you remember. They named him Narada Muni, and I said, that's not proper to name the cat Narada Muni, but it was too late. He was known as Narada Muni. He was addicted to kheer. You know what kheer is? It's condensed milk they offer to the deity, very delicious. Cats love milk, right? Anyway, so he would come just after the class. He knew when to come. And I would take a little of the maha kheer and put it on a leaf, and he would go for that, for years it went on like that. But they really can't understand philosophy. If the dog comes in here and says, well, sorry, you can't hear. But human beings can. This is the great opportunity of human life, is that we have the intelligence by which to understand who we are, who God is, where everything comes from, what the relationship is, and what this world is. This is called sambandha gyan. Gyan is knowledge. This is a prerequisite to really becoming determined in advancing in the bhakti marga. A marga is a path. We want to go on that path and advance. So the first step is understanding who we are, what our problem is, and how it can be solved. So the basic problem is that we're rotating in this Bhava Mahadavagni, the big fire, birth after birth. And all due to the mind, all due to the attachments that we build up in the mind, and also the karma. There's law. There's a universal law. I'm going to touch on that later and quote a nice verse from Dharmaraj. The Dharmaraj is here, I think. Is Dharmaraj here? I saw him in the arti. There he is. Dharmaraj Das. Haribo. Dharmaraj is another name for Yamaraj. I don't know if that Yamaraj is the judge. We don't want to see Yamaraj, and we don't have to see him if you chant Hare Krishna. So he has a very wonderful verse about the holy name that I'm going to quote later. So as Krishna explains in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita and third chapter, we are bound by our own illusion, by our own illusory attachments we have that are in the mind. When you enjoy something for sense gratification in this world, then that plants a desire seed in your mind to do it again. Why not? I enjoyed it the first time. Let's do it again. And that's why, the people who make junk food, they have only one thing in mind, not your health, the money. So they make it addictive. They put all kinds of, it tastes like anything, salt, sugar, and oil, So that's because once it's almost like an addictive drug at a certain point. It's a real problem because little kids get, the Doritos, so anyway, that all of our life is like that. It's not just junk food. You can get addicted to anything, and anything that's pleasurable. But the problem is that there's a reaction. If it's not enjoyed according to the rules of that Yamaraj has set down and Krishna set down, then it's binding, and it keeps us bound to this world of birth and death. So what the chanting does is that because, and this is a very important point, that's inconceivable, that the sound Krishna, especially when unvibrated purely, but always in any case, is non-different from Krishna himself. The very word or sound Krishna, they've analyzed it, the two syllables, Krish and Na. Krish is the all-attractive nature of Krishna. And Na is the bliss that you feel from chanting, you see. So the very name Krishna, and the key is concentration. This is what you keep learning that, is that absorption in the sound is the first thing. And if you just, it's because it's yoga. So that polishes the mind and the heart, and it cleanses away these other desires. You become more desirous of seeing Krishna, serving Krishna, taking prasadam, associated with devotees, hearing about Krishna. In other words, you're attracted to Krishna, and that eradicates all your karma, and your liberation is assured. Of course, it may take more than one birth to become completely pure, but that's the inevitable. It's the science. It works every time. And if we're able to concentrate and to control our senses, long enough to place them on Krishna. So that's the first installment. Cheto darpana marjanam, cleansing the mirror of the heart, and thus extinguishing the blazing fire of birth and death. And then the next line, he says, Shreya kaidaba chandrika avatadanam. This is where the benediction moon comes, Prabhupada's immortal phrase. So Shreya means good fortune. Now this brings up a topic Prabhupada would often speak on, which is very essential, and we can understand. The difference between Shreyas and Preyas. Preyas is immediate happiness. As you see, perfectly embodied in the little children, right? They want to know what, to enjoy now, and if they're enjoying, they don't want to stop. Mother says, come and have dinner. No, I want to keep playing, right? Because they're enjoying. But the mother knows that if they don't come back, take dinner and get regulated, take rest, and then get up in the morning to go to school, then their life in the long term will be difficult and they'll suffer. So this is that the intelligence comes in, and experience and education, that we want to try to put our energy into shreyas, into ultimate good fortune, rather than immediate pleasure. The more that you're after immediate pleasures, the more you're in animal life. The animals just know what's what's happening now. Where's the member of the opposite sex? Where's food? A lot of us, where's food? How can I eat? So that's rudimentary consciousness. But human beings have an ability to understand the long range. There's this wonderful verse Prabhupada would always quote, and there are many like this. Krishna speaks this in the 11th canto, I believe, in his instructions to Uddhava. We're familiar with Bhagavad Gita, but there's another Gita called Uddhava Gita in the 11th canto, which expands on many of the themes of the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna says, Labdva sudurlabhamidam bahusambhavante manushyam artadam anityam apiya dhira. Turnam yateta napateta namityava nikshresaya vishaya kalusarva taksa. Notice that word shreyas. He emphasized nikshreya means the ultimate good. So what is he saying there? Oh friend, you have attained the human form of life after many, many births. This is how it works. The soul, if we degrade ourselves, we can go down and lose the human form of life, but we never lose it permanently. And you come back up, you get more and more purified, and then again, you have a chance. So, but to make that chance work, you have to have the right association, and that's why Srila Prabhupada, following his Gurudev, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and all the great acharyas, made such an effort to spread the knowledge, to save people from so much suffering. That's the idea. So, bahusambhavane manushyam. You can hear it's in the cognate, it's human beings. Artha dham. Artha is valuable thing, the most valuable thing. Now, often artha means money, something, But in this case, artha means liberation from birth and death, attainment of pure love for Krishna, and return to the spiritual world. You see? For eternity. Krishna promises in Bhagavad Gita, once you go back, you'll never come back again. You see? That's our real artha. Not some immediate thing, I can pay the rent, that's immediate. You see? So arthadam means the ultimate goal, only human life. But like all forms of life, it's not permanent, anitya. So one has to be dhira. One has to be thoughtful and sober-minded. And then, turnam, without wasting any time and get distracted. Yateta, strive. Napateta namityava. As long as you have breath in your body, as long as you have energy, you can do something. Anumityavat, nikshayasaya, for the ultimate good, which is liberation from birth and death, and return to our original form in the spiritual world, Swarup, and for an eternal life and bliss and knowledge. It sounds like Pollyanna, but it's not. That's where we belong. And then he ends with a warning. He says, Vishaya kalusarva tuksat. In all these other forms, you have enjoyed all varieties of sense gratification. So what's the point of staying that? And where's the God? Another birth, another death, so many things. So don't give it up, you see. So that's the Shreya, that's the word Shreya, the significant Shreya Kaidava Chandika. So it's like a moon, this collective chanting, congregational chanting, which increases the power. Now, I'm not going to neglect the importance of japa. Many of you chant japa. So this is the other kind of chanting, solitary. You can chant in a group, but you're basically chanting on your own, hearing your own chanting. And that is also very important. Lord Chaitanya himself chanted japa. And he encouraged his followers to do that. The standard, when Prabhupada came, he came from the Gaudiya Math. That's the Bhaktisiddhanta's organization. And the minimum was 64 rounds a day. So when Prabhupada, yeah, right. She's saying, really? So when Prabhupada started his movement, he wanted to, transplant it to America. So he's sitting in this little storefront, 26 2nd Avenue, and he's got his first initiates, and they understand their vows they have to take and everything. And Prabhupada's, and 64 rounds. Okay, so they had these beads that they got. We used to call it the 5 and dime. Now it's called the dollar store. Now that's even too cheap. So they had these big beads that they all strung, and they're chanting. At the end of the day, Prabhupada, if you want us to do anything else, 64 rounds. Okay, none of us could do 64 rounds. Said, okay, 32 minimum. They went back and it came, oh, it's too many. Absolute minimum, 16, and it stayed that way. So some special days, fast days, Ekadashi, then you can chant more like that. That's a minimum. But the point is that is essential also. That type of chanting, that very concentrated personal chanting, usually done early in the morning in the Brahma Muhurta hour. If you come or you get on, you see online, 5:15 to 7:15, we have our japa period here. Some devotees take a walk, whatever, So, this is the Shreya Kaidava Chandrika. The congregational chanting is so powerful that spreads the benediction moon, and you get closer to the Shreya. Vidyavadu Jivanam. And it is the life and soul of transcendental knowledge. Now what this means is that knowledge is already there within us. There's so much to our consciousness that's buried, subconscious. So deep in our minds, deep in our hearts, we can remember our life in the spiritual world. It's there. And in fact, one of the teachings that Lord Chaitanya, that you read here, that he taught to Sanatana Goswami, is this verse, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem, Sadhya Kabunoi, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Kodayayudoi. Is that this eternal perfection of prema, pure love for Krishna, which includes everything, all the bliss, all the knowledge, eternal life, everything. That's the goal, prema. You don't have to try to strive for the others separately. That is there already. Nityasiddha Krishna Prem Sadhya Kabunoi. It's not something that has to be brought from outside. Then how can I realize it? Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte. By hearing, chanting, etc., and purifying the heart, like we say, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte, Kodayayudo, it automatically awakens. So this is a very important point. We already have the great treasure within us. We just have to get rid of all the dross, and it'll shine, you see. So Vidyavadu Jivanam. So we find that and of course one of the things is if you chant Hare Krishna, especially in the context of the Hare Krishna movement, and you're serious, then you also want to follow Srila Prabhupada's program, which is that, yes, the japa chanting, the kirtan in the morning, even at home, you can set up a small altar and you get up early and you chant the Guru Vashtaka, appreciating the Guru, and then there's Tulsi Puja. That's possible. You can get some seeds, or you start with a picture. There's all of these are helping purification. And then japa, then the Guru Puja, and then the class, the Srimad Bhagavatam class. That was Prabhupada's morning program. I made a word out of it. Mantu Jagri Ukra. Yeah. Ma is Mangalarti. Tu is Tulsi Puja. Ja is Japa. And then Gri is greeting the deities. And then Gu is Guru Puja. Mantu Chagri Gukla. Anyway, I don't know if it'll get in the dictionary or not. But that's the program that he set up. And if you're living in the temple, then that's what you live. And you find out it's not so hard. After a little, at first it's good. He's been 3 years now, 4 years. He came, and then after a while it becomes a source of great pleasure. So going on, I don't want to take too long here. So Vidyavadu Jivanan, and then Anandam Buddhivardhanam. We're right here next to the ocean, so you know how overwhelming it is. So he says, this chanting causes that Ananda ocean to overflow its bounds. In other words, the source of all bliss. And this is where the TLC and especially the Chaitanya Charitamrita comes in. Lord Chaitanya demonstrated by his life, first in Navadvip, within the confines of Shiva's Pandit's home, but then publicly on the street, how much ecstasy there is in this congregational chanting. And then one can feel. Because you're contacting your original self there, and the prema is flowing, and there's so many descriptions of that, very inspiring. So, Anandam Buddhivardhanam, you see, and Pratipadam Purnamitasvadanam. If you can remember the holy name throughout the day, and that's the ultimate, goal, is that you find yourself always in happiness. Even when you're getting old. We found it with Srila Prabhupada. Oftentimes, people get old and they get depressed. They can't do what they did before. They can't enjoy like they did, all these different. Prabhupada was never depressed. He was always extremely ecstatic, even when his health was failing. He was determined, And he got so much energy from the spiritual master, from Lord Chaitanya, that he overcame a stroke early on. He got so, he was so enlivened by the expansion of the movement that he had this mantra rock dance in San Diego, in San Francisco, in early '67. This is the summer of love, in San Francisco. So he went there, they started a center there, and great devotees, wonderful pioneers, Mukunda Goswami and Shyamasundar and others. So they had this mantra rock dance, and there was Allen Ginsberg, who was very, very famous at the time, and you had all these rock bands from the time. Amazing, Moby Grape, I don't know if you ever heard of them, but the Grateful Dead, and others, and they joined in, all chanting Hare Krishna. Prabhupada was ecstatic. He's jumping up and down, and his secretary said, no, his health isn't so strong, and he stopped the kirtan. But then he went back, and he kept, like that, and he did have a stroke, and it was almost life-threatening. So he went back to India to regain his health, and many devotees, he only had centers in the United States, I think maybe Montreal. I don't think Montreal was even settled yet. And they thought, Prabhupada, we won't see him again. So he was there in Vrindavan, and he was getting all these letters. Oh, Prabhupada, please come back. When are you coming back? When are you coming back? And he felt the pull, of these devotees who all loved him so much. He came back in late '67, and the movement grew from there. So this is what he's experiencing, and what Lord Chaitanya is teaching is anandam mudivardhanam, that one can feel this bliss, and it doesn't depend on your age, it doesn't even depend on your physical health, it just depends on your faith in the holy name and your sincerity in chanting. And then finally, pratibadam purnamitasvadanam, every step one can taste the happiness we've always been anxious for. And that means that the goal, one of the preliminary goals is to get the chanting down so it's always going on, even in your sleep, you're chanting. Because this word, going back to the Krishna, the na is the bliss, and the Krishna is the attraction. So the idea is that we are looking for the happiness in this world, right? Undoubtedly, that's normal. But we can't find it simply through the senses or the mind. It's really within us already. Krishna is within our heart, and he's there as the super soul. He knows everything. And when he understands that we're trying to reach out to him, we're trying to learn about him, we're trying to chant his name, he responds by cleansing the heart. There's a beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya came to preach the truths of the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam. So right there in the second chapter, first canto, it says, Shrinvatam sukata Krishna punya shavana kirtana riddan daksto yabadhani vidunoti suritsatam. This is just like the Siksastakam. It says, Shrinvatam, when one is hearing about Krishna and chanting, swakata, his own kata. So the Krishna is the subject of the sentence here. When Krishna understands, you're hearing vibrations from the right source, and you're breathing, genuine glorification. Krishna punya shravana kirtana, describing those vibrations as just by hearing them and chanting, you get piety, you get credits, purification takes place. Ridyantaksto, situated in the heart, Krishna, vidunoti suritsatam, he cleanses away all the abhadras, the unwanted things in the heart, the lust, the anger, the greed, all different material desires, all the karma. He cleanses away. He's powerful. He can do that. You see, it's a great blessing. And then one becomes fixed in faith, and he begins to taste more and more of the nectar of Krishna consciousness, which is already there. And it's not dependent on your age, your ethnicity, your gender, none of that. It's just dependent on your sincerity and your faith. Beginning with this chanting, everything expands from that. So I just wanted to end, or begin to get to the ending, about how this fits in with the idea of Dharma. Because Dharma is a great theme in the Bhagavad Gita. You may know from the beginning, Arjuna was afraid of doing this dharmic thing of killing his teacher and his great, his wonderful grandfather figure, Bhishma Dev, and all his other friends and relatives on the other side. So he was put into illusion by Krishna, so he would think in terms of kind of material dharma, And he says, oh, all the men will be killed, and when the women will be unprotected, then will be Varnasankara, there will be all, unwanted progeny created, and I'll be responsible, and all, So he couldn't fight. You remember, he sits down, Govinda, I shall not fight, you see? And what is it? What happens when he surrenders? He talks about Dharma. He says, how's it? Dosha. Tarpanya dosho pahat. Thank you. Karpanya dosho pahatas swabhava pritchami tvam dharma samudha cheta. So he's describing his situation. Karpana is relative to Kripana. He says miserly. He recognizes that he made a big mistake, but he doesn't know how to solve it. Dosho upata swabhava. My swabhava as a warrior, for righteousness, has been taken away by my miserly weakness because of my confusion and all of this. So now I'm asking you, Krishna, no more friendly talks, because they were friends. But Arjuna wanted to take the position of a disciple. And it changes. That way he can't argue anymore. He has to accept Krishna. And he knows Krishna is the ultimate guru. Pritchami tvam dharma samudha cheta. I am bewildered about what the right thing is to do. What real dharma is, you see. So now I'm asking you, yakshreyaksyan, here's the word shreya again. Please explain to me how I can achieve my good for myself and for everyone else. You see? Nishtitam bruhitam me, certainly, without doubt. Nishtitam bruhitam me, shishyastehim sharimam tam papam. Now I'm your disciple, not your friend. Disciple means guru-disciple relationship, you have to accept. And Krishna is the supreme guru. So it's a turning point in the Gita. And then Krishna, what does he do? He chastises him. He says, you're speaking learned words, like a pundit, but you're no pundit. You're lamenting for what is not worthy of grief. And then he explains to him, nobody dies. I made a little thing out of this. Someone can put it on a t-shirt. Every body dies. You got to understand there's a space here. I'm an English guy. Every body dies. Who can deny it? Eventually, we're all going to go. Every body dies. Nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body. You're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. That's the whole movement in a nutshell. You see? So, but Arjuna is bodily concept, at first. So he wants to get. So, Dharma Samudha Cheta. So I don't know what the right thing is to do. So I wanted to quote, this verse from the Hitopadesh. Hita Upadesh is a book, and then the name tells it all, the name of the book. Hita Upadesh, Instructions for the Benefit of Mankind. Hita, you see. So this verse is the one probably we often quote from there. Ahara nindra bayamaitanangcha samanyameta tapashubhina naranam dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho dharme nahina pashubhi samana. Eating, sleeping, sex, and defense. These four principles are common to both human beings and animals. However, the distinction between human life and animal life is that a human being can search after God, but an animal cannot. So it's dharma. That's what dharma is meant for. That is the difference. Therefore, a human being without that urge for searching after God is no better than an animal. So real dharma has to cultivate in pure bhakti. That's actual dharma. And on that note, I'm going to quote our old friend Yamaraj, who I mentioned at first. Because there's this wonderful section of the Bhagavatam at the beginning of the 6th canto. Bhagavatam is it's like big Wagnerian opera, expanding. There's so many wonderful arias and so many instructions and, things going on. So at the end of the 5th canto, it's very sobering, because just a little personal note, I had the great opportunity of working on producing the Bhagavatam. There was a marathon in May, June of 1975. I don't know if you know the history. But the books weren't coming out. Prabhupada was getting up in the middle of the night and dictating, and the tapes were piling up, and the books weren't coming out, and he was very upset. He'd done the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, and was just sitting there, and there were also a couple of volumes of the 5th canto weren't done. So I was in New York, where the books were supposed to be getting put together, but we were slacking on it. It wasn't happening. So he consolidated the whole press in L.A. L.A. had been the place where they printed the books, maybe in Japan or something, but they would warehouse them there, and they had a big truck. They would drive all over the country, deliver them, But he wanted not only that part of the process, but the actual production put it there. So we all moved to L.A., all the artists, the painters, everything. So let's see. I just had a good. Yeah, so I'm working on the 5th canto. That was part of my duty. I had some chapters of the 5th canto, and anyone who's read the 5th canto knows that at the end there's a chapter on hellish planets and punishments that you can get for certain sinful activities. Oh my God, you know, if you drink, you know, you drink too much alcohol, then after death, the Yamadutas will come and they'll pour down molten lead. You know, you'll be forced to do that for 1,000 years. You know, okay, never again. You know, nobody's no eternal damnation. You know, but it can seem like eternity if you get. Anyway, so that was, but then the beginning of the 6th canto. Pariksit, who's you know, he's one of the protagonists in the Bhagavatam. He's hearing it in 7 days. You know, he was cursed to die in 7 days. He could have had it counteracted, but he accepted the curse. And so he sat down by the Ganges, and then Shukadeva Goswami spoke the Bhagavatam to him in 7 days. That's the source of this Bhagavat Saptaha. You find, you know, oh yeah, we'll just hear Bhagavatam 7 days and we'll be fine. No. If you're like Pariksit, you know, you have to hear the whole thing. Anyway, so after that, Pariksit said, well, how can they be saved from these hellish punishments? You know, he's asking Shukadeva. So Shukadeva said, well, you have to atone for the sins, you know, by certain austerities and this and that and this. And Pariksit said, that doesn't sound good because it's like an elephant's bathing, meaning that you may atone for the sins, but the desire to commit more sins is not being cleansed away, and so you'll dive in again, you see? It's called Manye Kunjara Shochavat, the bathing of an elephant. Goes into the lake or something, gets all nice and clean, comes out, you know, and then how's he going to dry himself off? There's no gumption big enough. So he rolls around on the sand and he's dirty again, you see? So Shukadeva said, yes, you're right. So then he told the story of Ajamil. Ajamil is a wonderful story about the potency of the holy name, just to bring liberation, you know. And I won't tell the whole story, but he had been a very pious Brahmin, went out in the forest to collect firewood, and he saw a low-class couple having sex out there, and he lost it, you know, and he married the prostitute, and for years he was lost it, but he remembered to name his kids after God's names. So his youngest kid, he was 80 plus, and he had a little boy, and he named him Narayan. So finally the end was coming, and here come the Yamadutas. I don't know if any of you have ever had this experience. I used to work in a hospital for a year before I joined, and I was giving up the oxygen and everything, you know, inhalation therapy, and I saw a lot of people die, and sometimes they would be very disturbed, and the nurses would know there's something called terminal restlessness, where these patients say, why are all these dogs coming at me, you know, listen to that. Oh, they're just having terminal restlessness, and they give them a sedative, but that's the Yamadutas coming to scare them. So anyway, Jamil, here come the Yamadutas, you know, so he called out, Narayan! Narayan! He's a little boy, he's playing over there, you know, come, save me. What could he do? So immediately the Vishnudutas come, stop the Yamadutas. Well, he's pure now, you can't, what do you mean? You know, come on, he had so many sins. Go back to Yamaraj and here, you know, and Yamaraj says, whatever you do, don't approach the devotees and chanting the holy name. And he has this verse that describing that where the holy name fits in with Dharma. Etavan evalokesmin. If you read the Bhagavatam, you get into it, you know, in the Sanskrit. When you see a verse beginning Etavan, it's often a very important verse that encapsulates a lot of philosophy. So this is his Etav. After preaching to his dutas, and this is his wind-up verse. Etavana velokesmin pungsang dharma paraksmitaha bhakti yogo bhagavati tannama grahanadi bi. He's speaking about the chanting. Devotional service to Lord Krishna, beginning with the chanting of his holy name, is the ultimate religious principle for every human being. And that's, the Bhagavatam is the basis of Lord Chaitanya's preaching. And this is just one of many verses about the importance of chanting the holy name. So just to wind up, if you have a chance, you haven't got this book. It's a wonderful book, The Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and it encapsulates all the different teachings he had with the different disciples like Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, when he met Ramananda Roy, and they discussed the highest levels of bhakti. It's all in there, and Prabhupada presented in such a way that we can understand it. A very wonderful book, and we have it. It's not even a hardback, but it's very nicely produced. So see if you get that. They have them out on the book table there. And try to take this chanting seriously. Many of you are already chanting japa. So try to set a certain minimum number of rounds and really try to meet that quota every day, if possible. And we have these classes, morning and evening. I have my evening classes on YouTube, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 7:15. We'll go. You can watch them wherever you are. And we've been going at this since 1989. We've been through the Gita several times. Now we're in chapter 9, which is this key chapter. So you can join us. And of course, the morning classes, they're all online. And try to increase your commitment and the faith in the process. The process works. It's infallibly if we do it right. And yes, it's difficult because we're so conditioned by this contaminated Western culture, But Srila Prabhupada started a revolution, and it's actually spreading. And the process always works. It's scientific, and it's very joyful and ecstatic. And just a reminder, one of the main festivals is coming up. Of course, we have Janmashtami. Balaram's appearance day will be coming a week earlier. And then Radhastami later on, I think all in August. I think the last day of August is Radhastami. But August 4th is the LA Ratha Yatra. So don't miss that. We have a bus that we charter. So make sure you get on that bus. That you can. I don't know if they have anything going on outside, but you just keep in touch. And so that's August 4th. There will not be any program here on August 4th. Because everyone's going to be in LA. Once a year, there's no Sunday feast here. And that's the day. Okay, any questions or comments on any of these points? The chanting of the holy name, the Siksastakam, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and all of our eligibility to advance. And Guru Krishna Prabhu, you're first.
Thank you, Prabhu. So you were describing the benefits of chanting Hare Krishna together in kirtan and also on beads with the japa. What's the benefit for taking this chanting out into the public? Is there an additional benefit for that?
Yes, there's a lot of mercy. Prabhupada began his movement that way. He himself took it out of the storefront. It was just in the storefront. Then they went out to the park. And for 3 hours, he chanted. And it was the hippie days, here's an event, it's happening, so people gather around, And that was the beginning of the public chanting. But then, actually, the beginning was, they went to the other side, the West Village. And the first recruits there, they were a little bit hesitant to go out. They were a little embarrassed. So I thought, we're doing this thing in the storefront, now everyone's going to see us, with these robes and everything. I don't know if a few of them had robes, but it wasn't as welcoming in the west side. I used to live. That was where there was the more money class lived there. That was the Greenwich Village. So they sat down on the grass, started chanting. Police came. Didn't you see the sign? Who's in charge here? You can't sit on the grass. So probably get upstairs. They sat on the pavement. But then they did it in the east side, and that was freer. That was like the Polish immigrants over there. So anyway, yes, and that's always been integral to the movement, is the public Harinam Sankirtan party outside. When I joined, it was 3 hours a day. That was your quota. I thought it was great. We had Central Park we went to and everything. Now it may not be so strict, the minimum hours, but we try to do it as much as possible, because this is, you get extra credit for that. There's an extra feeling, because you're not only chanting for your own benefit, but you're helping others to hear, and you realize, oh, this is You know, so even if they don't repeat the holy name, you know, if someone just hears it, this is in the 6th canto. I would love it. If you just hear the holy name once, purely chanted, then that eradicates eons of births of karma. So what a benediction, spreading the rays of the benediction moon, you know. And it's so simple. All it takes is one ingredient, not money, but faith. Faith in it. And if you try it, it's not long before you feel the benefits yourself. So the faith is nourished by that. You know what I mean? So yes, public chanting, Harinam Sankirtan is all auspicious, and Lord Chaitanya did that extensively, and he wanted his followers to do it. So we should do it when we can, and we're going to have a chance. Now, before, unfortunately, due to my schedule, it's hard for me to make it, and I'm in the throes of old age, so I can't do what I used to do. But every Sunday, at 4 o'clock, there's a gathering out front, and they go down to the beach for an hour and 15 minutes or so, and they walk, you know. So everyone's invited, you know, and then they get back here in time for the program. There was a nice little Harinam today.
We had so many cancellations today, we didn't actually go out.
Okay, yeah. So
I'm hoping for a big group next weekend.
Okay, so I'll see if I can try to make it, because I'm very much partial to Harinam, but my schedule of work is still working for the BBT. We're still going over the books, and I'll give you a sample of what we found. One of my favorite verses of the Bhagavad Gita is this seminal verse. It's, you know, they're all important. Yehi sangsparjaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate ajantabandam konteya nateshu ramate buddha. So the translation we had is, the intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to the contact of the senses with the sense objects. O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the source of all misery and have a beginning and end, and so the wise do not take part in them. But I was thinking there was a little confusion with the subject and predicate there, so we adjusted it. Intelligent persons do not take part in the pleasures which are due to the contact of the senses of sense objects. O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the sources of misery, and they have a beginning and an end, and so the wise do not take part in them. So the key is, where is that source of pleasure which doesn't bring misery, which just brings more pleasure, and which does not result in any bad reaction, but results in all good reaction? And that's bhakti rasa. That's the chanting of the holy name. It's all good. It's good for you, it's good for those who hear you, it's good for your health. It's just good, good, good. And so it's highly recommended, and why not, you know? So yes, we should keep that 4 o'clock kirtan going, and I'm going to try to arrange my schedule so I can participate at least in part of it. Anything else? Yes, but we need a mic, because no, I know, but you can't project through the YouTube. We have people in Canada who are listening. Yeah.
Thank you for your class. What time does the bus leave? August 4th.
I'm afraid to tell you when. We usually try to board around by 7:30. You know, but we'll give you exact instructions. It's going to start appearing in the newsletter. Do you get the newsletter? Okay, so sign up for that, and maybe you can ask the front desk, because Mukunda Charan, I think he's probably there. He's in charge of organizing it. So it's usually around 7:30, isn't it? I think.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Anybody else?
All right. Are we ready for another kirtan? We should be. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.